Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us here on Right Now. Today is Wednesday. It is August 5th, and we are quickly blowing through the summer here. I am Chris Gros, joined as always here by Jack Hall. And Jack, we got a lot to get to on today's show. We are jumping between local news here in Southern California to what's going on with the results of some of the primaries that we've seen take place here across the country, as well as the Chargers back in town here for training camp. So a lot to get to, a lot on the plate, but we are going to start here in Southern California, and this ties back to a conversation that we had yesterday as part of our lead story.
It was something that we briefly touched on. One of those, at the moment, it was just a side detail that we haven't really heard a whole lot of. Lo and behold, we actually got that update very shortly after we signed off the air yesterday. So we were still here in the building when we got this report. We got this announcement. So interesting how timing works sometimes, but we want to make sure we dive into this today.
Yeah, the longstanding rule around here is that the 11 a.m. show is the show for breaking news, and that's where we first heard this story as it broke. But now we have opportunity to dive more into it, and that, of course, is the Eaton Fire cause report. So this, of course, is letting us know a little bit more about what caused the deadly Eaton Fire in the Los Angeles area back in January of 2025. A report from the LA County Fire Department finds that Southern California Edison equipment sparked the wildfire. Remember, that was a part of our conversation yesterday, that was still up in the air, although the utility company was beginning to send out payments. This is now essentially saying that they were.
This is an official report.
An official report, definitive cause. The Eaton Fire, of course, killed 19 people, destroyed or damaged more than 9,000 homes and businesses. 14,000 acres were burned. A spokesperson for Southern California Edison owner Edison International did not immediately comment to the release of this report. Now, this report was put together. We know LA County Fire was involved in this, but CAL FIRE, the state fire agency, was a part of this as well, too. And Jack, this was an 18-month investigation that looked at a variety of different things. I mean, I think so often we think of wildfires as being, Mother Nature, human cause. And when we think of human cause, oftentimes I think we always kind of go towards arson. We know that in Spokane, that's what they're dealing with. They're dealing with a case of arson. They've taken someone into custody. We know the Palisades fire was initially pointed to as potential for arson. They've tried to, prosecute that case, but they are still in the midst of that. But I think that it's important to remember, especially because of our conversation yesterday, that sometimes it can be human. I wouldn't say it's human error, but utility companies, I mean, these are human constructions. These are human things. These are utilities that we use. And there are a variety of things that can spark a fire.
Oh, yeah.
That leads to one as big as this.
And so, 18-month investigation. You said it there in your read when you introduced it, but let's go over it again, because 18 months, I think, it does a lot to explain because of just the sheer magnitude of what this fire was to begin with. As you mentioned, 19 people confirmed to be dead. That's by the LA Examiner's Office. Destroyed or damaged more than 9,000 homes. 14,000 acres were burned. So getting to the bottom of that massive fire was one of these priorities. It ended up taking 18 months. But before we go into what the investigation looks like, let's just talk about the conclusion, because that is the top story. It concludes that the most likely cause of the Eaton Fire was caused by the electrical arcing events that took place on out-of-service towers. So the immediate question is, what is arcing?
Yeah.
So that is the flow of an electric current across a gap or through air. So if you think about it, you got two metal beams that are sitting there like that on your screen. Sometimes you might see it in a sci-fi movie, or you might see it occasionally in the real world. I know it's very common to see in like a sci-fi movie, but when you see those beams of electricity, it looks like lightning going between two metal poles or two conductors. That is what's called an arcing. It is an electrical current that is going from one point to another through the air. So that air that surrounds it becomes ionized. It turns into plasma, which of course has the bright flash. And it's an explosive release of pressure. And of course, the most notable here is intense heat. So reading this report here, this is one of the final sentences. It doesn't necessarily go into the details of the specific investigations that take place. Rather, it's an outline of it because, they hired an engineer, they hired a metallurgist. A lot of the supporting documents that aren't readily available to us at this moment go much more into the specific details as to what actually happened. And stuff that I think right now is above our pay grade to kind
to
of break down
speculate
here
or
in the
yeah,
morning to
yeah.
do it, because, you and I are not engineers, nor
Correct,
are we
yeah.
metallurgists.
Right.
So we're just going to go off of the general report so far. But take a look here. This is what it says. These arcing events ejected hot metal particles that fell to the receptive fuel beds consisting of dry vegetation below the towers. The introduction of this competent, my apologies, ignition source into the available and receptive fuel below resulted in ignition, causing the Eaton fire. So that arcing event gave out certain residue, those being those splashes of hot metal. And because this is an out of service one, the report seems to imply that there hasn't been any upkeep in
maintenance.
Making sure that the ground was effectively cleared, that dry brush, it got into it.
Defensible space.
Space here.
Yeah, it happens. And this is obviously a wide-ranging investigation, and it comes to this result, but there was a lot of work that went into this, a lot of time that was put into this. And a lot of, as we said, experts that we are not going to pretend to be experts, but we are going to read sort of the spark notes, if you will, the very key details about this report. So the timeline. This obviously was huge. It was very complex. A lot of folks went into this. Southern California Edison electrical utility equipment was not readily available, actually, at the start of this investigation. I think that was pretty key there. Planning required for disassembly, removal, and the storage of equipment. Examinations began at warehouses in Azusa and El Segundo in July. So that's 6 months after the fire started. They were able to take down that equipment, get it into warehouses, contain it, so that it then can be studied and looked at. Continued incrementally through the latter months of 2025, and due to the size of some equipment, certain pieces of evidence had to be moved to larger facilities to actually look into this. Larger pieces were transported. We're talking out of state, Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Across the whole entire country.
Yeah, taken through all the different places. Then finally, July 22nd of this year, final versions of the metallurgy failure analysis and electrical investigations report sent. So basically that report, they put it all together. They studied everything. They then brought that back to those who would put this all together. And we now fast forward to August 4th. And that's when this report is finally released.
I think it's important to keep that timeline in there, because there was, especially in the early aftermath of the fire, there was a lot of conversation about what was the cause, and so much speculation.
What was taking so long to get the cause?
What was taking so long? So we take a look at this report, and we're talking about an out-of-service tower. These things are massive. So it is that disassembly, transportation. There's a chain of custody that has to take place for a lot of this. So the people that were in charge, who were tasked with writing this report, had to sign off. They had to see the chain of custody take place, not just from Azusa to El Segundo, but from El Segundo to Bowling Green in Kentucky and back. So it really was a large-scale operation, and a lot of the complexities, as it calls it in this report here, is simply transportation, disassembly. A lot of the painstaking work here seems to be just transportation. Everything on the periphery of the tests themselves.
I mean, just think about any criminal investigation in chain of custody when it comes to evidence. It could be anything from like a lipstick vial or shell casings. The amount of care that goes into securing what we would think of these sort of nominal items that are very key to any type of case now make it this, as we said, electrical tower, right? Like huge electrical tower, obviously probably taken via roads, freeways, and so forth. And all of that, things can happen. And that's a very complex process. Chain of custody, you mentioned, it's more so than just people signing off on papers. It's preserving that evidence to make sure that obviously they can accurately come to a conclusion here to give people. And I don't know if it's peace of mind. So much of it is, answers. People want answers. And lives were lost. Property was destroyed. And there's been a lot of talk about what to do now here moving forward.
Yeah, so despite no report, it was widely believed that Southern California Edison was behind these fires. That was something that we said almost specifically yesterday, and we made sure to make that clear as we were talking about them yesterday, because we still hadn't had that report come in. Again, as you mentioned, it is the middle of the day where a lot of this breaking news stuff comes out. We come on at 9 a.m., so it does happen where we wrap up our show, we preview something, and as soon as we sign off, we head out of the studio, we got that update. that we were waiting for. So yesterday was definitely one of those days. What we did know is that the company said that it definitely was a possibility that it was this tower or a tower that could have ignited the Eaton fire. They were not shying away from that potential of that being the case. They had not officially taken responsibility, but they've been running a wildfire recovery program here for the past year. So far, over 4,000 claims have been submitted to the company's wildfire recovery program. Funds totaling nearly $1 billion so far. It's $775 million have been offered. So we have a statement here from Southern California Edison. This is not in regards to the report. We want to make that clear.
This is when the wildfire relief fund was started.
Yes.
Right?
So they've been, just to kind of double down on what the comments that we've seen from the utility company in the wake of this recovery effort that they've done on their part. Here they are saying, quote, the compensation program is to fill that gap and connect people really to that final step of recovery. So, Chris, we're also hearing some other statements. It is to kind of set it up because it's not. It is a legal counsel liaison who represents a multitude of individual plaintiffs who are currently in litigation here with Southern California Edison. So they've released a statement on the investigation itself, on the report.
Yeah, because there's the relief fund, but then there's also litigation that is going on against Southern California Edison for potentially even more money than has already been released. And in fact, we'll put the statement here. This is from the liaison counsel. It says, quote, this report is an important step toward accountability. We have maintained from the very beginning that Southern California Edison caused the Eaton fire, and the report, leaves Edison with no place to hide. It continues to say, quote, we have continued to accumulate overwhelming evidence that Southern California Edison failed to properly maintain its electrical infrastructure while prioritizing profits over public safety. Even after this tragedy, Edison rewarded its CEO with a $16.6 million compensation package. It's time for Edison to stop fighting the victims it harmed and provide every Eaton fire survivor with the full compensation they deserve.
So they've said that number of $775 million that has been offered from the company's wildfire recovery program. What we're hearing from this legal counsel is that's not enough.
No,
they're representing a vast number of affected individuals. We've mentioned it's about 9,000 homes that were either damaged or completely destroyed. 19 lives had been lost as a result of this fire. There are many people here who have sought some sort of relief here. We're hearing that it's not enough.
It's relief, but I think also there's an important point there because it's also accountability, the line of profit over people. And there's one thing if the power line malfunctions and it causes it. It's another thing if they are going to be able to trace a line between there was deferred maintenance. This is not just out of work, but this was, there are levels to it, right? Because it's one thing to say that SoCal Edison was responsible because the power line is what sparked the fire. It would be another thing to say that it's also because there were deferred maintenance that was like avoided because of cost or any type of other sort of malfeasance that they would then try to prove it. I would believe in a civil court. Yeah. So I think for a lot of people it's not just to money. I think that word accountability. Justice might be another synonym to use for that. And these plaintiffs feel like they have a case here, and that this report is just one part of that. Yeah, it'll get them there.
In terms of the legal battle, we expect this to go on for a while here. Yeah. So, but it comes at an interesting time, and we'll circle this back and we'll tie it to yesterday's story, because this comes at a time where the legislative session up in Sacramento has just weeks for the rest of the year. There's a multitude of bills that are expected to be signed. There's about 12,000 measures that are going to be considered. Governor Newsom is expected to sign about 9,000. So we are really going to see this fast tracking up there in Sacramento of getting a lot of this legislative business done for the rest of the year. And one of them that is catching some eyebrows has to do with utility companies just like Southern California Edison, like Pacific General and Electric, and San Diego Gas and Electric, about what the limit of their culpability financially to future fires may be. So this is an ongoing conversation that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and again, that was something that we talked about yesterday, is that we haven't really even seen the writing. What we have heard from is this We've seen the ads that have gone out, supposedly put together by this group, basically pushing for, a fix to the insurance, the way that, the insurance companies are doing business. And it's run by a group of what are really a bunch of business groups. So there are no groups that actually represent wildfire victims. The wildfire victims groups are saying, hey, look, we think that this is shifting what will be responsibility, as you said, from utility companies more so to insurance ratepayers, and that will offset the balance that they feel needs to already be adjusted. In fact, fire victims and consumer watchdog groups, they're the ones who are sounding the alarm right now that this could be something that is signed at the 11th hour, and that they believe that it could impact, obviously, the very people right now who are fighting for every scrap of accountability, money, a way to sort of reset their lives back to what it was prior to the fire, or for anyone who might be a future victim.
Yeah, it's called Wildfire Victims First. That is the name of this coalition right now. They're trying to convince the public that there's new laws that the state needs that limit how much attorneys can sue for the fires. There's a lot. We were talking about this yesterday. This is an issue where there's a lot of finger pointing about who gets what and who has to pay for what. We're seeing here that there's a concerted effort to point the finger. You mentioned the insurance industries. They've taken some shots at them when it comes to how they frame this issue. But defense attorneys are one of them as well. There's a spokesperson for this group here, this public campaign, that says that these are predatory attorneys who are preying on victims to collect big percentages of their settlements, and they got a lot of money in their pockets here to make this campaign. Top lawmakers, the governor, are reportedly meeting behind closed doors to discuss protections for these utilities, but no one in Sacramento so far is speaking on the record. We know that this coalition includes multiple chambers of commerce. We know that even
business groups
and the business groups who are
but
non-governmental
no
have received money from the utility industry. So it really seems to be here, based off of the reporting, to be quite the united front that is going on. And this is an all-out pressure campaign here in a relatively short period of time. Like we said, this is something that is only just a few weeks for these deliberations and these negotiations to take place. We're already seeing the alarms being sounded by certain groups. We talked about the unlikely bedfellows of the insurance industry and these utility payers right now, especially on such a touchy topic like wildfires right now. It's such an interesting concept that we're seeing here.
I think if you poll, Southern California taxpayers, and you said, do you prefer insurance companies or utility companies? And I don't think you would really get much answers, right?
Yeah.
Because I think people would have a hard time choosing between the two and which ones are their least favorite. But it is an odd pairing now that essentially these utility companies who have put together this coalition called Wildfire Victims First, which, again, it's ironic that of the coalition of chambers of commerce and business groups, there are no wildfire victims. There was the one from, I believe, Sonoma, who was briefly attached and then quickly removed because they did not like what they were, shooting for.
They hadn't realized that they
hadn't realized what they were signing up for, and that they were the only one. They didn't want to be the only one. And so it is sort of this really ironic union of insurance companies and insurance, customers who have felt like they have been, for the lack of a better word, sort of twisted by the insurance company in the past when it comes to maybe not even claims for wildfire damage, but just in general, insurance companies either jacking up rates because of the cost of doing business in the state of California and or leaving altogether. And so this weird union that has formed because utility companies want to reduce the amount that they are liable for. So it's man, if anything could bring insurance companies and Southern California residents together, I guess it would be the utility companies.
It's really interesting to see, and I think a takeaway here is, and I think the statement that we heard from this legal counsel does a good job, is that this is a fight that is not nearly over, even in the slightest. There are multiple battles in multiple arenas, whether that is civil court, whether that is the Sacramento, California legislature. But this does represent some sort of closure here for the victims of this wildfire. There is still money that is waiting to be recovered. There are still lives that are waiting to be rebuilt. But just the explanation of what led to it is something that I think is important as we kind of wrap up this segment here, because an 18th month investigation, there's there's a lot of speculation that they've been hearing from multiple different sources, whether that's broadcast news, whether that's social media, et cetera, et cetera. There have been multiple instances where perhaps unverified facts, outright false claims have been released about their swirling about what happened here. And we've seen it in some senses be politically charged. And I think to get this official statement on what actually happened is something that is going to help ease this process as it continues into some really uncertain waters right now.
And this is likely going to be whatever it is that that lawmakers decide on if they do pass something that utility companies are pushing for. If they don't, this is likely going to be a huge topic when it comes to the governor's race.
Very much so.
The gubernatorial race, wildfire, insurance companies, utility companies, who's at fault, who should pay. This report itself may even come up. So there's going to be a whole lot to talk about. And this is a conversation that we will indeed probably be revisiting. As we said yesterday, we just did not know how quickly we would be revisiting
very much so.
this conversation.
Every day is a surprise here.
That's right. Yeah.